So, yeah, a little bit of progress here. Just working on the secondary hull. It's got the Enterprise gray on there from yesterday. Looks really great. I'm really happy with it. But of course, I have to add the sort of the darker shade of gray, greeny gray that comes in at the neck there. So I'm going to use my light. It's actually a light blue. This is my Enterprise gray with just a little bit extra white in there, 10% white. As you can see, it's just that right shade. Actually, it should be just really perfect. That's color. So I'm just in the midst of just taping that off right now. Got the main pieces done there, and so I'll just do the big tape parts now and quickly give that a shot here tonight before bed. That'll dry overnight. These two guys did some work on as well. So, as mentioned yesterday, I decided I am going to paint the Broussard collector cap piece there. I'm going to actually add in some amber, orangey amber color there. But in advance of that, I realized that I need to have a cleaner edge. So I had painted on a liquid mask. And when I took that off, I found that it's just not, I'm being very picky here, but if you look careful, you can see it's not perfect seam, especially here. You can see it's just not as clean as I want. I want it to be kind of perfect. And so, yeah, that's what, especially this one, you can see quite a mess there. So that's all been retaped. Just very carefully putting down that line, so I'll get a nice Enterprise gray edge there on those collectors. So these guys go back into the paint shop yet again. So they've had a few go-arounds, but that's all right. Worth it to get them perfect. They're definitely gonna go on my end here. This is what I'm talking about with the Broussard collector. So I want the cap to look really clean, nice clean edge to really highlight those the coloration that I'm going to be putting on these guys. I might get to that if I'm going to be doing, especially when I'm doing the Enterprise touch-up here. I want to do I'll have this prepared to do the Enterprise touch-ups here and on my little crack, little seam there. I just want to do just a little bit there as well. So I'll do those at the same time when I'm doing the Enterprise. And then, of course, at the same time I'm doing Enterprise, I'm going to actually do the primary hull here. So I'll just get those. Got to remember to put on the liquid mask there. Okay, so have these guys prepped for the smoke paint, so you can see the tape job. It's done there. Both of them ready for that there. As I say, they already are kind of a little bit smoky, but they're going to get a little darker smoke here yet. So we'll get after that here in just these guys with the lighter color, which I think I mentioned in my previous video. So I'm gonna get a little better color there. I had used this guy, Sky Gray, XF19, but it's just not quite white enough, so I'm going to make a mix there. And going to make a color here with, I think, probably 1 to 5 or 1 to 4 with just some XF2 white and that, just to give it another couple of shades up there. So I'll get that made, mix the color up, and spray those. So primed the primary hole last night, and came out okay. Talking bottom, my edge, as expected, we found a few spots where it's going to need a little bit more work, especially in here. That's normal, to be expected. That's why we fill and prime, and nothing shows it up more than we do that. So we'll sand that down and get another layer of putty in there and try and get that a little smoother. And then prime one more time. So that's, I'm on the first order of business for today. Generally came out good though. That's nice to get that moved ahead a little bit. This guy, I mentioned last one, I think I showed that I'd filled in my little scratch there, and so I got that painted, so it's looking back to pristine, which is great. So I think I can actually leave that on there for now. Yeah, that was looking great. Sword is still up there, but it's roughly that color, fire hydrant red anyway, and then I'll have the gold stripes similar to that, so you kind of get a flavor for what that's going to look like on that. Lovely. And just my little strips here. Really happy with how those turned out. I feel they're really on point, what I really wanted there. Yeah, really well defined and just exactly what I was hoping for. So lovely. Lovely, lovely. Overall, these are really starting to come together, really starting to pop. It's funny, but the nacelles take the most time and attention. They're the most, in some ways, the most complex part. The Enterprise is, a lot of bits and pieces, and definitely the most painting, and the most challenges around especially the Broussard end of the business. So they take the time. That's where I've spent the vast bulk of my time on the model, is on each of the nacelles. So that's okay. They're one of the centerpieces too. When you look at an Enterprise model, it's one of the beautiful parts about that ship design, and so it's worth getting and putting in whatever is required here to get them right. So I think today, do some experimenting first on the coloration for the collectors, and then I'd also really love to get the silver painted in on these as well. That would be fabulous. So we'll see here if time allows. But I will. I can let you see. We should be getting close now on this guy. We'll get ready to paint our Broussard collectors. With a bit of luck here. Oops. It was worth going back in there and just making sure we had that done as good as we could get it. Now's the time. If you leave it, you know, it's never gonna, you're always gonna kind of look at that and sort of the little things. It's funny how they can kind of haunt you a little bit, at least for me. And that's maybe just the curse of perfectionism, which I do have a little bit. And so for me, I always like to do all that I could reasonably. All right. So that's lovely. So that's nicely fixed. So I'm just happy with everything about that. I think the nacelle is a good match for this guy. They're ready to go. Now, one thing you notice I did yesterday, I did just go in and sand these little veins that I'm going to be painting. Remember, we decided to go with the Vallejo transparent orange. So that's what we decided to do. It's still gonna go that way. And so I did just go through and sand there, and I still may do a little bit more. So I'm just using my little bit of 600 there, getting it ready for my for painting. And you can see just gently, I've got the tape there in between the veins, so there's not much risk here, but you still want to be really gentle in doing this. And this is just getting it prepared for the paint that's going to be coming in there. And I've really worked a lot at trying to get that to look so it's going to look the way that we want it to look. Because remember, you know, you're gonna look center on it a lot of the times, not to the side. So, so it is worth trying to get that. You know, it's trying to get them as even as I can and get them up there in any way that I can. As you can see, I've got it pretty good. I've got a piece of actually. Believe it or not, it's this, which is exactly the right thickness here for when, if this is sitting flat, so we just attach this on that, and now to make sure that we've got it correct, we want that height, and then this will be coming in just flat on the, like that. And what this will do is make sure that we get that right height so that we get perfect alignment. So that's the big trick there, is just getting the glue in there and figuring that out. And as I say, making sure that it's set. So there you can see how that's going to work to make sure. And I'll do some other eyeballing there to make sure we get that perfect, because there's nothing worse than having that off kilter in some way, and then when the nacelles come in there and you look straight on, it doesn't look lined up. So we've got to really spend the time to get this blocked and get the right heights and make sure that we're 100% comfortable. So a few updates from last night. We have primary and secondary hall attached, and I did, went really well. And very solid. I did use the Bob's epoxy, 2-part 5-minute, which worked out great. It gave me that bit of time, and I did use it to kind of like be looking at this in a lot of different angles to make sure that I get that that proper alignment, so that we don't end up having something out of kilter at all. So when those nacelles go on, that we'll have a nice alignment, that everything's properly positioned. So that took a fair bit of work, and I did need that. I had it all kind of blocked out, and I had it set up where I knew the right position, but still that got it the first set level where it was in place, and then I was able to make very, very fine adjustments to make sure that that was in fact perfect. Now, as you can see, there is small gaps on both sides, pretty much the same size, I guess, which makes some sense. Maybe a little bit bigger on this side, slightly. Notice I did get a little bit of, at one point when I was putting it in, it was all great, but the epoxy is fairly slick when it's at first. Anyway, long story short, it did kind of pop out there, and after all of that, it did get a little bit of epoxy there. I've already started sanding a little bit off there. It's pretty much ready to go there. But not a big deal, because I have to actually put my fill in here anyway. And I want to get that fill done before I bother painting here, so I can get the putty in on that seam, and then because that should be a little smoother than that. Just an ever so slight little bead in there. I'm just going to lay that in with my little putty spatula there, and just kind of get it a nice flat along there. And then that, actually the front's not too bad, and then just along there as well. So that's next up. I'll do that here this morning, but it's nice and solid anyway. That's the nice part about that epoxy. It's made for the ages. That's not going anywhere at all forever. Maybe a little bit more time. It takes, I think, about a day actually for that 2-part to completely set. But I mean, it's pretty hard after 5 minutes. It's not really going anywhere. But I guess actually the full cure is an entire 24 hours. So a little bit longer to go today before we hit that mark, but certainly workable. I think they even say after just an hour or two, I think it's completely workable. No worries there. So I'm full speed ahead today on that. Really excited, really happy to have that piece done. It's kind of one of those a little bit nerve-wracking, because it's so critical to get the alignment correct, and it's a big deal. That's a big part. I mean, obviously the next biggest pieces we've got is the nacelle. Speaking of which, also did, as you know, do the painting of the nacelles. So, as you might recall, I had thought about using my Vallejo transparent orange, which I had done some testing on. But what I kind of, and I have not too bright there. When I had done my testing, which was on this old guy, this mess of a one of the spare, they give a couple different versions, because this was the original pilot, the original pilot's versions, and also the Mirror Enterprise. Anyway, slightly different versions. You can see it's all one single piece as opposed to the two there. Anyway, so you just used it for testing, but you can see this is where I laid down the transparent orange, these two, and not thinking well enough. It looked good in this areas, but notice it actually doesn't look so great where I had done where the primer had been exposed. I mean, it makes complete sense when you think about it. And so when I had sanded these down, as I mentioned yesterday, we just sanded all of the veins down, which is normal to make paint hold. You don't typically want to just put paint on paint. Long story short, that part that you see there, that's what it all looked like. In other words, you couldn't see the transparent at all. It just looked like my gray primer. Yeah, so that wasn't my cleverest moment. So I had it ready. I had to make a decision about what to do, and so I decided to create an opaque version of that color. So I had this orange, and I had a couple of just cheap airbrush colors that I could quickly make up a copy, and I did it essentially 2-to-1. So I had two whites with one of my little darker orange there, and it came out to a pretty similar color. Looked pretty good match. And laid it in just to see, and you can see much more opaque, and so I did get, obviously good coverage there on those veins, and they're completely filled in. The thing is, that's untested. I never did that on my test one, of course, and so I have no idea what to expect here this morning. But I think I'm going to have to take it apart and have a look at whether that needs an adjustment. Bottom line is, not a huge deal. Even if I hate it, I simply retape off the nacelles, repaint the entire thing fire hydrant red, and start again. So no big deal here. It's not like it's always just plastic and paint. You can fix it all. It's just time. And I'm a patient modeler, so that's not a huge deal. So that's not the preferred method of doing things. Normally we'd like to kind of test and know what we're getting into beforehand. That just didn't happen in this case through an unfortunate sequence of events there that was not optimal. So let's we might as well just have a look here. I'm just gonna dig in and have a look at one of these. So put that one out of the way here. So, moment of truth here. Let's just get after taking some of this off and see what we've got going here. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so it's well, that's interesting. So it's definitely. And obviously that is very noticeable. There we go. That was easy. Easier to take off than to put on, I can tell you. So, yeah, actually, I think I'm really happy with that. I think so. I think so. Let me just try something quickly here, just a little bit lightly. I think I'm gonna not mind that. That looks great. That's really what I was looking for. Lovely. Yeah, really happy with how those turned out. Just what I was looking for. Yep. So again, let's work on getting these caps just a little bit sanded out there, just so they slide on there just a little bit smoother. I would consider that a success. So, not exactly what I wanted here, but close. That color came out similar. If you look at these two lines, the top part of these two lines, it's maybe a little lighter. I should have could have left it a little darker. It went 2 to 1. I actually started the other direction. And anyway, long story short, it's close, and it ended up with a pretty nice look that I'm happy with. So that's a big thing. All right, so that is on. So I'm really, really happy with that. Like, that's exactly what I wanted. So I just thought I'd give a little update after the caps went on. So I've just done my tape job I mentioned here, where I very carefully got on the insides where I want to keep that silver, and you can see now clearly with that paint job how inconsistent the sort of border around the grill is. And so I'm actually going to move and get that darkened out. So just the grill itself is a silver part, which I believe is an accurate representation of the actual production ship, as near as I can tell from the photos that are available. That's what I believe is the case. So I did the fill, as you can see, and started a little bit of the sanding. It's kind of a very tricky thing to get in there, and also get into the specific spot that we're interested in, of course. So that's where one of these little sanding sticks can be kind of handy. Just like that. So I'm pretty happy with that. As you can see, I obviously had the tape in there as well, just to protect my color there at the front. I don't want to have a headache there. So, but the rest of that looks pretty good. Not sure about that one spot there, but I assume that's okay. I think that's actually just the tape. Kind of. This is a great very little way to sand in these kinds of tricky spots. And there's actually on the other end is kind of a little flatter for this sort of area as well. So, just going to remove the tape here. So I thought I'd just record that and see how it looks in real time with you here. Let's hope it's not a scary thing. We'll look here. So that was actually pretty good on that side, but that's exactly what I wanted to peel it off for. You can see there where that's where I've got to put some work in there to get that better. Let's take these pieces off and just see where that ended up here. So this is really the big one here. Yeah, that worked out great. Really happy with that. So yeah, you can see generally that came out exactly the way we would want it to. I'm going to maybe do just a little bit more sanding right there. There we go. Generally looks great. Part that does need work still is obviously just along in these sections in here. So that's something I'm going to have to do a bit of work here. Just like that. I'll probably just stick out that a little bit. That's nice.